Good morning. I'm Richard Calhoun, Creekside Realty broker for the past 40 years. We're here to talk about Silicon Valley real estate market geographically and graphically, and then the Greater Bay Area. It's week number 38. We're going to come back to this slide at the end. Here are some of the data slides that we're going to be going over. I am working on a slight abbreviation explanation table that I'll try to add in for next week based on feedback, and I do appreciate any and all feedback. Anyway, as we're going through this slide, this is being presented to you Saturday morning at 9 a.m. live. You can join YouTube archive is available, and it has an explanation on how to get to the live presentation. Flipping the slides for the Greater Bay Area, and in a second we'll get into the database. It's the actual data. Here's the actual data we're going over. We'll do the summary at the end. Here is the active inventory. So what we're doing here is we're comparing the number of active listings to the 10-year median 2014 through 2023 for the same date. So for example, we'll pick Milpitas, North Valley, Berryessa, Blossom Valley, Santa Teresa area. It only has 35% of the inventory that it typically has based on that 10-year median. So there's a huge shortage. Basically, you only have 1/3 the active listings for buyers to look at that you would expect to see. That clearly favors the seller. That's why the red hot color, and it's basically saturated red. Now we flip over and we look at the number of offers, and the number of offers are also down. Looking at the same area, offers are 47% of where you'd expect them to be. So although offers are also down significantly, at just under 50% of the offers you would expect, they're not down as much as the active inventory, which is only 1/3 of what you would expect. The shortage of offers is less severe than the shortage of inventory. That gives you a seller's marketplace when you look at the balance between supply and demand. And basically the supply demand is only 80% of what it typically is. And the lower the number is, the faster the market is, and a fast marketplace favors the seller, and that's why the color is a shade of pink in this case. That ends the comparison of the 10-year median, and the reason I do that is each micro market is significantly different in size, so knowing what the value is today really doesn't give you any useful information, but knowing what the value is compared to the typical number starts giving you useful information. Now we're looking at raw counts of just this current year, and days of unsold inventory is the speed of the marketplace. And because the number of offers and the number of active listings should be in balance, this does give you some useful information just looking at today's data. This is an indication of the speed of the marketplace, and basically I consider 40 to 80 days of unsold inventory to be sort of a balanced marketplace. Less than 40 is a strong seller's marketplace. More than 80 starts to be a strong buyer's marketplace. The only area that's in a marketplace is the expensive areas in San Mateo County, Menlo Park, Atherton, Portola Valley, and Woodside. The coast is right on the cusp at 82.5 days. You can see there's just a very fine blue color. And the fastest area that I'm seeing right now is probably Santa Clara at 21 days. I'm not seeing any faster. Basically, there's 3 weeks or longer of inventory, but again, you'd expect 6 to 11 weeks is the balanced marketplace. A good part of Santa Clara County, a good part of San Mateo County, and all of Alameda County is basically in a strong seller's marketplace. Alameda does have one exception of Oakland, which is a little interesting. With the slower marketplace, you would expect less competition, but we'll see it's pretty aggressive in Oakland. Now, for those that don't like complicated metrics that are useful, this one is pretty straightforward. I'm just looking at days on market. This is looking at days on market, and I'm looking at the 75th percentile. And the reason I picked 75th percentile is one, a lot of statisticians say there's value in looking at quadrants, the 25th percentile, 50th percentile, the median, the 75th percentile, as well as your min and max. On days on market, the median is a very stable number and doesn't give you really any change in the marketplace. And then when it does change, it's a step function change. And the number is artificially low because sellers put their house on the market expecting price where they expect it to sell. and typically it does sell. It's very common, no matter how fast or how slow the market is, that half the listings are selling in 7 days, and so that number is pretty stable. You flip over and you look at the average that a lot of people follow, and that's bad because if you have one seller that sells after being on the market for like 4 years, that really pulls up your days on the market. The 75th percentile gives you a data set that behaves like the average, but doesn't have the drawback of the average, because one seller selling after 4 years is not going to impact the 75th percentile. It would impact the average. Now we're looking at the average price adjustment. These are price adjustments the sellers make between the time they list the property and the time they accept the offer. And I just did notice one area. This here is a slight shade of pink. It should be a slight shade of blue. I have to do that manually, and every once in a while, like this time, I goof up. That should be a slight shade of blue, as much blue as it is pink. But basically, this is a measure of how much the sellers reduce their own asking price before they accept the offer. Now, Union City and Newark is a huge exception. The sellers are actually raising their price in that one micro market area, the two cities. Doesn't happen very often, but it has happened, and it's happened in a couple other areas. You can see that it's a very tight metric, and by that I mean the numbers don't change very much. In fact, you can see that a balanced marketplace is from 1/10% above to 1/4% below. So really, basically no price change whatsoever as a balanced marketplace. Sellers that understand the market, buyers know the market, people go in and buy the properties. The sellers don't have to adjust the price before they get the offer. And then you can see there's some areas like the coast where the sellers on average are reducing their price 3.5%. So this is basically the magnitude of those price reductions, and that's averaged over everybody. And this is the frequency, and this helps explain why it's so small. And on the coast, the area that has the biggest amount of price reductions, just barely over 25%, 28.6%, barely over a quarter of the sellers are reducing their price at all. Same with South County, just under a quarter of the sellers are reducing their price. So that's quite a few sellers are reducing their price. I consider anything over basically 17% to be about 17 to 20% to be a balanced marketplace. And I'll probably expand that out a little bit. This is a fairly new metric for me, and I'm just getting a feel for it still. But the concept is the same. The lower the number, the less frequent price reductions are. Now we move over to overbidding. So we flip from the seller active listings to the buyers and offers, and what are they doing? Now, the drawback of this metric is you have to wait until escrow closes. So the data is delayed by 5 or 6 weeks. But again, this is putting all the offers in a blender after they have closed escrow and looking at the sale price to list price ratio. You can see only one area, and that's the expensive areas in San Mateo County, is the average sold price lower than the list price for that particular listing. So the sellers are getting less money than they want. Everywhere else they're getting above, and Oakland, which is what I commented on a little bit earlier, is 11% above. It's one of the highest overbid areas. It's the second highest overbid area, and yet the days on market, or one of the previous indicators, was particularly low. I don't remember which one it was. That's one reason you look at so many metrics, is any one metric may not tell you what the market really is, but the sum of all those metrics really gives you a good handle on what the market's doing. This is the magnitude of the overbidding. Everybody in a blender, including those that get below asking price, those that go way over, everybody in a blender. This is the frequency of overbidding. How common is it? So you can see overbidding is the most common in Cupertino and Sunnyvale at 84%. Basically, only 16% of the sellers are getting their asking price or less, and 84% are getting over their asking price, which typically suggests, multiple offers, because typically a buyer is not going to pay more than the asking price if there isn't multiple offers, or at least a very strong threat of multiple offers. And you can see that these numbers are fairly aggressive. The only number that's blue is the expensive areas in San Mateo County with 28%. Only 1 in 4 sellers in the expensive areas of San Mateo County is getting an offer over their asking price. This is the appreciation since the last 9 months of 2015. And it's very interesting that the cheapest areas here being East San Jose, Central San Jose, and South San Jose, and the expensive areas in San Mateo County have the highest rate of appreciation. I think, that almost doesn't make sense right off the bat, but I think I'll make sense out of it here in a second. Basically, this is the expensive areas in San Mateo County is a fairly small number of transactions. And what is happening to sell now, the market mix of what's selling now, are the more expensive homes in that area compared to what they did over a longer period of time of 9 months of 2015, specifically the last 9 months of 2015. Where in the East San Jose area, the reason it's doing so well is we've had a shift from the pandemic where the areas that used to be the job centers, San Mateo County, central part of Santa Clara County, people want to be close to work. Now people have less time in the office. Yes, they may still have to go to the office 1 day, 3 days, 4 days a week, but there's also more flexibility. Instead of needing to be there from 9 to 4 or 9 to 3 and having flex hours outside that area, now maybe they have to be there from 11 to 2 and flex time outside of that period of time. So there's more flexibility, so people are willing to commute further. And you'll see this also when we look at the regions. I think what we're having is a fleeing of the job centers going to more affordable areas, pulling up the appreciation in those more affordable areas because all of a sudden they became more desirable. Here's the sold price, and instead of just following the median price, which is the middle number, I also follow the 10 percentile and the 90 percentile. The huge advantage this gives you is it gives you a range. In other words, let's pick another area. Let's pick Los Altos, Palo Alto. The median number is 4 million, and that really doesn't tell you much other than it's an expensive area. But now you add in the low range of 2.7 million and the high range of 6.2 million, and all of a sudden you know that basically in a $3.5 million range, all the homes are in that price range, and 40% are from 2.7 to 4 million, and the other 40% are from 4 million to 6 million. You get a range no matter what micro market area you're in. And if you're looking for a home at $1 million, there isn't many areas. You can see there's a few areas where there's no areas where the median price is under $1 million, unless you come down to Hayward, San Leandro, San Lorenzo, and Oakland. But most of the areas are, 1.1 and above. But you can see that, if you go down to South County, you go into Central San Jose, you can see that there's some 10%, some of the cheapest homes in those geographical areas would be within your price range. Now, here's a summary of what we went over, and the concept here's your 20 different micro market areas in the 3 counties that make up Silicon Valley. Here is a summary of each of them. So if we pick something like Santa Teresa, Milpitas, seller's marketplace on the shortage of inventory, a buyer's marketplace on the shortage of the offer. But the more important between the two, and neither the active or the offers is significant in itself, but the ratio is at 83%, it's favoring the seller. Days on sold inventory, basically 25 favoring the seller. 75% of the sellers are selling their home in 2 weeks or less. That favors the seller. Sellers only doing a 0.5% price reduction. That's in that narrow band that I call a balanced marketplace. Frequency of price reductions, only 9% of the sellers are reducing their price at all. So that's less than 1 in 10. It's about 1 in 12 if I'm doing my math quickly on the fly. Overbids, the overbid amount is 6%, which is getting pretty significant. 80% of all offers coming in are over the asking price. It's had 77% appreciation, which is right about in the balance, with half the areas doing better and half the areas doing worse. Then you have not a heat of the marketplace, but it's a little bit more affordable. So people are driving a little bit further out to that area for the affordability, and it's within Santa Clara County. And then over on the right-hand column is the payments, assuming an 80% loan at jumbo rates from the Federal Reserve, which is actually a national average. The numbers locally would be, could be significantly different. Now we're looking at the three major components for all of Silicon Valley. We now are taking those 20 micro market areas, putting them in a blender and saying, what's going on? You can see the purple line, the inventory is at 71% of what you'd expect. The offers is at 73% of what you'd expect. And the days on sold inventory is 87% of what you'd expect. So you have a faster market with less inventory and less offers, but the number of offers in the inventory are roughly in balance, a little bit short on the inventory versus the offers. The purpose of this slide is only really the last line. And basically right now, 2023 is the 24th worst year out of the last 25 years. The only year that was worse was 2007. 2007 had 1,505 offers. We're selling 25% more than that at 1,884. But it's the second worst year out of 25 years, and it's the worst year out of the last 10 years. It's only a matter of time for either the market changes in one direction or the other, or it even could stay put. But right now, sellers pass away at a sort of a given rate, sellers sell at a given rate, and we're not having the sellers come on the marketplace. At some point, that supply is building up and more sellers will come on the marketplace. What you don't know is whether the more supply of sellers will correspond with the more supply of buyers or not. But right now, you have a very strong balance that's still favoring the sellers, but below where you'd expect it to be, basically close to record low levels. And 2007 was the mortgage meltdown. Here is the price range for the whole of Silicon Valley, the three counties, the 20 micro markets in a blender. The cheapest 10% home, your payment would be just over $7,000. Your median price home would be $12,500. And your most expensive 90% home would be basically $25,900. Now, most people, when they're buying the expensive homes, have had a previous home, have had stock options or other things. Here is a distribution. This graph is a little bit different. Each line on here represents a week or a month's distribution. It's a 1 week distribution, but they jump every month initially. And then when you get to 13 weeks, 3 months, you start doing 12 weeks, 11 weeks, and go every week. But it's just looking at the seller's price reduction. So as you go up and to the left, with fewer and fewer sellers doing price reductions, the market's improving. Here's sort of the worst line we ever had, which just December 27th, 2022, right at the end of 2022, was the worst week distribution we had. A year ago, we were right here. And so what we'll do is we'll step through this, and you'll see it's going down initially. Then you get into the spring, and by spring, I mean January, and it jumps way up. There's the peak. And now you came coming down, and now we're sort of in a balanced place, bouncing around a little bit. And coming up is the current week. Right there is the current week. The purple week right there is the week before. This is the current week. The current week is only 3 additional days. All except for the current week, I'm comparing the same day of the year, the date of the year. So April, and that's how you get these dates that are in the future. We're not to September 27th yet, but anytime you see a future date and it pulls it back to Friday night at midnight. This September 27th date really is September 23rd data, which is through midnight the 22nd at 11:59 p.m. and then goes back 5 weeks. When we get past the 27th, the data will be recalculated and it will be the 27th data acquired on the 27th, which would be through the midnight on the 26th, looking back 5 weeks. The 5 weeks is consistent. I would like to compare the same day of the week, but you can't do that because then you have the discontinuity when the number of days in the year are not divisible by 7 in a normal year, and then they're off by 2. That's why I picked March 1st as my real estate fiscal year, as I only have one discontinuity. Now we're flipping over and looking at the same thing with the buyers. So this is the amount of overbidding. And here, as you go up and to the right, you're getting to be a stronger marketplace. And here, the worst week we had was November 30th, 2001. That was closings as a result of the World Trade Center. World Trade Center was September 11th. then you had a slowdown in the marketplace, and then you had a 5-week lag time before the nesting instinct came in and we started improving again. Here we go, pretty stable, going down. Now you're going up, and this is very stable at the top end. It really is more stable than the seller's price reductions. But remember, this data, even the current data, is lagging behind by 5 weeks as you need to close escrows. I would expect this to start falling down based on the seller's list price, but it is possible that the sellers were just getting used to the high prices. They're adjusting their own price, and buyers are waiting for the sellers to adjust their own price. And it's possible that this does not move in series with the seller's frequency of price reductions, but the seller price reductions increasing is a rollover of the marketplace. And we saw that coming up in 2022, much earlier than any other metric. Now we're shifting gears again, and we're comparing Silicon Valley data, the 3 counties, the 20 micro market areas, to the 3 lines, the 3 thin lines. You have the red line, which is the 10 percentile, the hottest marketplace, the gray line where you'd expect the market to be, and the blue line if you were having a cool marketplace. With inventory, a cool marketplace is a large number, so the 90 percentile, the slow marketplace, is going to be blue and a high number. When we look over and look at offers, the blue number is going to be low. But the concept is the swing between the two is 10 to 90 percentile, with this is where you'd expect the market to be. The purple is the actual data. The purple is basically right on top, only, if I'm doing my math right, 24 more listings than the least you'd expect to have. Now, yes, you do go below the least you'd expect, because the least you expect is the 10 percentile, and you have that 0 percentile every once in a while. We're basically at the 10 percentile mark right now, and that's showing the shortage of inventory, because you'd expect to be up here at 2,960. So you have a shortage of basically 850. Now we're flipping over and looking at the offers, and here again the offers are below, and now we're below the least you'd expect. The least you'd expect is almost 2,100 offers, and we're basically at 1,900. We're about 10% below the least you'd expect. And if you compare it to where you'd expect the market to be, you'd expect it to be up here at 2,560, 2,550. You're basically 300 offers short compared to where you'd expect it to be. Days on unsold inventory, balanced marketplace of 45 days is where you'd expect to be. We're basically really close to a balanced market at 39. Remember, I'm saying 40 is what I sort of loosely consider to be a balanced marketplace. The fastest you'd expect to be is down here at 27. Right now, DUI is only 87% of where you'd expect it to be. If it was where you'd expect it to be, it would be right on the black line. You can see in 2021 and very early in 2022, the DUI was lower than you'd expect. A low DUI is favoring the seller, which is why you have the red line at the bottom of the graph and the blue line at the top of the graph. Now we're looking at the 75 percentile days on market. Again, this is the first slide that's pretty straightforward in a lot of ways. In other words, there's less processing in the data, but where you'd expect it to be is the least you'd expect it to be is 18, and that's exactly where we are. You'd expect to be at 26 days. So we're selling 8 days faster than you would expect to be. And in a slow marketplace, you'd be up here at 35 days. So we're selling twice as fast as a slow marketplace. And basically, this is saying 3 out of 4 sellers are selling their property in all of Silicon Valley in less than 18 days right now. So yes, some come on the marketplace and sell 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Professionally, I believe a seller should expose the marketplace for very close to a week, but everybody has their own marketing plan. Some people take the first offer in the door. The vast majority are going through the first weekend, and there's some debate whether what day of the week you go on and what day you accept the offer the following week, and all that's fine. But all that activity, no matter, even if you go out on a Tuesday, which is about the earliest most people go out, and you delay looking at offers till Thursday, that's only 10 days on the marketplace. That's why this number is at 18. 3/4 of the sellers are selling the marketplace basically at that 10 days plus 1 week. So after 2 weeks on the marketplace, they're get 2 weekends on the market. 75% of the sellers are gone. Here's where you compare to normal, same concept. You're at 71 days. It's faster than normal, which is a hot marketplace. If you were completely normal, you'd be right on the horizontal line. Here's looking at the seller's price reduction. This is how much is the seller taking their price reduction before the offer comes in. The low you'd expect is 98.3%. The most you'd expect is 99.5%. You can see the change in this metric is only 1.2%. That's why I call it a very tight metric. Right now, the purple line is right where you'd expect it to be. Purple's 99.1 and the gray line is 99.1. So same number within a 1/10%. So that's a pretty typical number of seller doing price reductions. This is looking now, because that's such a tight metric. We talked about days on marketplace taking the 75th percentile. Here I went out and looked at the 90th percentile. You get a lot more fluctuation, but you get nice things like this, which are telling you the market's changing. You can see that the curve for the cool marketplace and the hot marketplace and the median is really no more cyclical than any of the other indexes. Looking at the 10th percentile is still, in my opinion, statistically significant. Sellers, the 10% of the sellers that are taking the largest price reduction are reducing their price to 88%. So they're taking a 12% price reduction. The least you'd expect that same percentile to be reducing it is a 9% price reduction. They're taking basically 3% more price reductions right now than you would in a hot marketplace, but they're taking 3% less than a cool marketplace, and they're pretty close to the median. Here's where they are taking a little bit more price reductions than you'd expect, 10% more. And again, this is looking at the 10th percentile. So we're ignoring 90% of the marketplace and just looking at the sellers that are taking the biggest price reductions. Here's the frequency of those price reductions. You'd expect 16% of the sellers to be doing a price reduction, and only 13% of the sellers are doing, almost 14% of the sellers are doing a price reduction. 2% fewer sellers are doing price reductions, which puts you towards the seller's marketplace at 11%. So you're only 2% away from where the hottest you'd expect. So even in a hot marketplace, 11% or 12% of the sellers are doing a price reduction. Looking at the 90th percentile is not a bad indicator if typically, even in a hot marketplace, 12% are doing it. You're not getting a lot of 100% in there typically. And the reason I didn't want to use the 25th percentile, it's only in a cold marketplace do you get up to 25th percentile. And again, in a hot time of the year, even the 90th percentile is a little conservative because only 5% of the price reductions sellers are doing a price reduction. So 5% of my numbers at, basically right at the end, going right at the start of second quarter, 95% of the sellers are taking no price reduction at all. So only 5%. So half my sample size is going to be at 100. Here's the frequency of price reductions. And this is price reductions the seller takes, ask price reductions. You can see you're basically at 78%, so less price reductions going on than you'd expect. Here's looking at the average overbid. This includes the ones that go in below. If I only looked at the ones above, the number would go up a little bit, not dramatically, but it goes up a little bit. The reason it doesn't go up dramatically, there's not that many properties going below asking price. Right now, you're at 106% of the list price is the sale price. The sale price is 106% of list price. The most you'd expect it to be at this time is 7%. So we're within 1%. We're 2% above where you'd expect it to be at 104.5%, closer to 1.6%. And you're 4% above where you'd expect it to be if you were in a cool marketplace. So we're somewhere between that balanced marketplace and a hot marketplace. Here's looking at the frequency of overbidding. How common is overbidding? You can see that right now it's at 68%. You'd expect it to be at 64%. Again, it's sort of right in the middle between where you'd expect the market to be and where you'd expect it to be if it was a hot marketplace in 90th percentile. Here is looking at the median price for all of Silicon Valley, coming in still at $1,550. The line through there, this is on log paper, is just the rate of appreciation. You can see that in early 2022, we were way above where you'd expect it to be. And then in 2023, right at the end of the year, we were way below. Now we're looking at the 3 counties. So you have Santa Clara County in the blue, you have Alameda County in the gray, and you have San Mateo County in the orange. You can see they're all did the same. You can see they're all down. San Mateo County is really not down on the available inventory when you look on there. Really, San Mateo County's got the normal number of listings. In fact, I would almost say it's a little bit high for this time of the year. The other 2 counties are clearly lagging behind. Offers accepted, they're down in all 3 counties. Here's days on sold inventory. Look at the huge increase. I made the comment last week. Santa Clara County has turned around and reversed, and San Mateo County basically is a plateau. But Alameda County is up. If these trends continue, it's concerning. Santa Clara is not currently impacted, but it's still one of those things where I would raise the caution flag and say, hey, what's going on? Because days on sold inventory is a very important indicator. It's the supply and demand in a free economy is what dictates future pricing. Here's the 75th percentile. None of the numbers are high. You'd expect these numbers to start going up, but even this would be a lagging indicator because it takes time for the days on market to increase should the market flow. Days of unsold inventory is instantaneous because you're looking at the rate of current sales. Here's your magnitude of list price reductions. You can see that San Mateo County has the biggest price reductions at 98.6, so 1.4% price reductions. Santa Clara County next at 1%, and Alameda County doing the best with only 0.7% of a price reduction. Here's the frequency of those price reductions. Alameda County is actually doing the best at 11% again. Santa Clara County again is in the middle at 14 and doing the worst is San Mateo County. And that's sort of the pattern. Alameda County is really benefiting from the pandemic and the affordability issue, and San Mateo County is really hurting because of that. Here's the overbid magnitude. So now we flipped over, and this data is lagging behind by 5 weeks as we need to close. San Mateo County is doing the worst, Santa Clara County is doing the middle, and Alameda County is doing the best with the most overbidding. Frequency of overbidding, Santa Clara County is actually more frequent. Santa Clara County is doing more frequent overbidding than Alameda County, and if you want to call it a tie, that's fine, but the magnitude of the overbidding is less in Santa Clara County, and San Mateo County is still clearly in last place in this metric. Here's the appreciation. And again, San Mateo County is doing the worst. You can really see that with the pandemic, up until the pandemic, all 3 lines basically are on top of one another. Yes, Santa Clara County picked out here in 17 and 18. We did a little double appreciation, but then we made up for it the next couple of years. But now there's some separation. Santa Clara County clearly has the highest appreciation, followed by Alameda County, and then San Mateo County having the least appreciation. Here is the current pricing. San Mateo County is bouncing around a lot. And that, this is a good example. San Mateo County has like 350 sales, and yet the median price is bouncing around that much. That's why I don't go down to the zip code levels. Every one of my micro market areas is multiple zip codes because I want to have statistically meaningful data. Because if you have data that's bouncing like San Mateo County, the entire county is, it becomes meaningless. The one and the other advantage of micro markets is I group properties that were similar, more homogeneous properties, giving me better statistics. This is on log paper, same information on regular paper for those that prefer. Now we're moving over to your estimated payments. San Mateo County is at 14.9, 14,900, Santa Clara County 14,500, and Alameda County at 10,400. The previous slide on payments was the 10 median and 90 percentile. This is based on county. Here's the numbers for those that like to actually see the numbers. You can come back and look at whatever's important to you. Now we're leaving Santa Clara County and Silicon Valley, and we're not completely leaving it, but we're looking at the Greater Bay Area. We're talking about 5 regions now. Here are the numbers to start with, so sort of the reverse order. And we talked about Silicon Valley being the purple line, the 3 counties in a blender, decrease in inventory, how San Mateo County is actually up a little bit. But look at the Central Valley, the yellow, and North Bay, the gray. They're normally up here somewhere around 4,500 active listings, and they're down now 2,500 in 2000. So they've done a bigger reduction in inventory available than Silicon Valley and any county in Silicon Valley. Here's the number of offers. You can see that the Silicon Valley is doing the best with the number of offers. And you can see these three counties are normally pretty good. So Silicon Valley is doing the best as far as the activity. Here's the Greater Bay Area days of unsold inventory. You can see all the regions are increasing, so the market's clearly slowing. You can see San Francisco, that did a huge slowdown, is now doing a fairly significant improvement. Even if you went from here to here, it's still a slowdown. The market is clearly slowing down, but it typically does at this time of the year. Here's time on the marketplace. And again, the trend is up, but the last couple of weeks in several regions has been down. Coast has been just climbing, but still all very respectable numbers. Here's ask price reductions, what percent. Central Coast is doing the most price reductions, and it looks like Central Valley is doing the least price reductions at 0.2%. Here's the frequency of the price reductions, all the way from the least number of price reductions being Silicon Valley at 13%, the most being the Central Valley, which is sort of weird, where the sellers are doing the biggest price reductions or the most frequent price reductions when it's one of the hotter areas. Here's the magnitude of overbidding. The hottest area is Silicon Valley, followed by the cities, which is a little surprising because a lot of the other data for the cities is fairly negative, followed by North Bay, followed by the Central Valley, and then Central Coast doing the least well. Frequency of overbidding, basically from a third in the Central Coast. So Central Coast overbidding is pretty uncommon, but 4 of the regions are between 50 and 70%. So close clustered. The general trends are the same, but there's some fluctuation, like the cities has been going up recently. Silicon Valley's been going up recently. Here's the total appreciation. It really stands out that the cities had the least appreciation at 38% appreciation since the last 9 months of 2015. And the Central Valley has had the most. Silicon Valley is in second place at a 78% appreciation. Here's the sold price. The cities is back on top of Silicon Valley. You can see that for a period of time here, Silicon Valley was above, or the cities was below Silicon Valley. That kind of reversal of orders is not very common. Here's the monthly payments, which are directly related to the price. And with that, we finished up. We'll do a little explanation. This is what the green is, what I call my root URL. That takes you to the YouTube base channel. If you add 2023 to the end of it, you can get to the Saturday morning, 9 a.m. presentation. If you put in H for handout, the year 2023, the day 09/23, you get the handout. My goal is to have it out 15 minutes before 9. I did make that this week. And any specific episode, you just put in the year, month, date code. With that, I'm open for any questions. Let me see if anybody's unmuting themselves. No unmuted mic. Thank you for joining. Take care. Have a great week. See you next week. Bye for now.